The month of July 1945 found the submarine USS Barb on patrol in the Sea of Okhotsk, in the areas north of Hokkaido and east of Karafuto. It was Barb's 12th and final patrol of the war, and would be particularly noteworthy for its innovations in submarine warfare. By the time Barb departed on her 12th patrol, she is one of the most successful submarines in the war. After a slow start with only 2 sinkings in her first 7 patrols, Barb's fortunes changed when she was assigned a bold young commanding officer fresh out of prospective commanding officer school, Lieutenant Commander Eugene Fluckey. From the start, Barb's new commander proved incredibly competent, and she began to rack up victories, culminating in her just completed 11th patrol. A patrol that was so spectacular, the Navy temporarily lifted the veil of silence on submarine operations, permitting newspapers to tell the story of Barb's daring night surface attack on 30 enemy ships at anchor in the shallow waters of Nonquan Harbor. Evading armed escorts, Barb fired 10 torpedoes, scoring 8 hits. Pursued by 2 gunboats, Barb fled at high speed through uncharted rocky waters, thick with fishing junks, dodging obstacles and steady gunfire for an hour before reaching the safe depths of the open sea, leaving behind a scene of raging fires, exploding ships, and 36,000 tons of destroyed shipping. For his ingenuity and gallantry in leading his men to this victory, Commander Fluckey received the Medal of Honor. However, he wasn't finished yet. As Barb headed for refit at Mare Island Naval Shipyard, Fluckey was developing a new tactic he called maximum harassment, in which a submarine would employ multiple hit-and-run attacks along the enemy coastline, thus drawing out a disproportionate enemy force to counter the threat. While in the shipyard, Barb received new equipment that would increase her harassing capabilities. This included new sights for her 40mm gun, a more powerful 5-inch deck gun aft of the conning tower in place of the 4-inch gun forward, and a load of several Mark 27 homing torpedoes designed to swim out of the tube, leaving no telltale air bubbles, making them more effective for shallow water operations. On the vacant 4-inch gun mount, Fluckey envisioned a rocket launcher like those being installed on the landing ships for shore bombardment. Her repair work complete, Barb returned to Pearl Harbor, where Fluckey was able to cajole the Navy into giving him the only Mark 51 rocket launcher and all 72 of the 5-inch rockets available in Hawaii. With his rockets, homing torpedoes, and extra ammunition for his new guns, Fluckey was ready to put his new tactics to the test. On June 8th, Barb departed Pearl Harbor for Midway, flying unbeknownst to their skipper, a special flag the crew had made. After topping off at Midway, Barb reached her assigned area on June 21st and immediately began harassing the enemy, sinking 2 luggers at close range with gunfire. Barb then turned her weapons on shore attacks. During the early morning hours of June 22nd, she took station off the Japanese town of Shari, home to a large cannery. At 0234, Barb made history as the first submarine to employ rockets successfully against shore installations, as a dozen 5-inch rockets came screaming in from the sea, damaging the town center. Early the next morning, she encountered a large wooden trawler and sank it with gunfire and a bow wave generated by a close sweep that flooded the shell-damaged hull, thus preserving ammunition. During the first week of July, Barb really began to turn up the heat in the icy waters of the Okhotsk Sea, beginning on the 1st with a trial run for a planned saboteur raid. On July 2nd, Barb closed within 1,100 yards of the island of Kyoto, on which there were new naval radar and radio stations, barracks, and supply warehouses. At 0641, the order, "Man Battle Station's gun," was given, and Barb's gun crews opened up with their twin 20mm, 40mm, 5-inch, and even 230 caliber machine guns, firing salvo after salvo onto the island, destroying 20 buildings. Barb brought so much firepower to bear that Radio Tokyo News proclaimed, "Kyoto bombarded by 6 capital warships." 1 submarine surfaced later and joined the engagement. On July 3rd, Fluckey's plan of maximum harassment continued. At 0247, the order "Rockets Away" rang out, and in just 4 seconds, 12 5-inch rockets were on their way towards the factories and airbase at Chaikuka. 30 seconds later, the rockets exploded among a mass of buildings and yet another town went dark. A A few hours later, it was time to employ another weapon in Flucky's arsenal. At 12:33, a homing torpedo swam out of Tube 10, hitting and sinking a cargo ship as Barb's crew scrambled to retrieve valuable charts showing locations of Japanese minefields. Over the following weeks, Barb's coastal rampage of gun, rocket, and homing torpedo attacks continued, prompting Radio Tokyo to announce that the north coast of Hokkaido was preparing for invasion due to the continuing attacks by the U.S. fleet. The most legendary attack by Barb didn't use either the rockets or the guns. Observing trains passing along the Japanese coastline, Flucky worked with his crew to hatch a scheme to dispatch a landing party and blow up one of the trains. Eventually, they came up with the idea of taking their own scuttling charges and fashioning a bomb from them. This task fell to the chief of the boat, Gunner's Mate Chief Petty Officer Paul Sanders, and Engineman 3rd Class Bill Hatfield, also designed the microswitch detonator that would be used to detonate the bomb when the train passed over. On July 23rd at midnight, Barb moved in to just under 1,000 yards offshore and the landing party paddled to the beach. The party was in 2 boats, led by Lieutenant Bill Walker, the ship's engineer, and Chief Paul Saunders. The other men, Petty Officer Hatfield, the only married man in the party, Signalman 2nd Class Francis Server, Ship's Cook 1st Class Lawrence Newland, Torpedoman's Mate 3rd Class Edward Klingsmith, Motor Machinist Mate 1st Class John Marcuson, and Motor Machinist Mate 2nd Class James Richard. Flucky required the men chosen for the landing party to represent all departments on board the submarine. They must be unmarried, except for Hatfield, whose expertise was required for the pressure switch, and at least half had to be Boy Scouts. Flucky knew that as Boy Scouts they'd have emergency medical and survival training should anyone be injured or any party not be able to return to Barb. As Flucky sent them ashore, he called out to them that they had no more than 3 hours to make it back to the boat, or he would leave them behind as the sun started to rise or risk exposing Barb to shore defenses. If they should be stuck, they were to head north for Siberia, some 130 miles away, by following the mountain ranges. Once ashore, they made their way to the tracks and proceeded to set the bomb. Those not involved with the bomb itself took up guard positions. Marcuson climbed a water tower to get a look at the land and found he had actually climbed a lookout tower. Luckily, the guard was asleep and never noticed Marcuson's arrival or subsequent hasty retreat. An hour and a half after leaving Barb, the party signaled they were returning. 15 minutes later, a train was heard coming down the tracks, and Flucky shouted through a megaphone for them to paddle like the devil. 2 minutes later, the train triggered the bomb that sent locomotive wreckage 200 feet in the air, derailing 12 freight cars, 2 passenger cars, and 1 mail car. The party made it back on Barb's deck 5 minutes later, and Barb retreated back out to sea. They had just orchestrated the only Allied ground combat operation on Japanese home island soil. On the morning of July 18th, Barb fired her last torpedoes, sinking the frigate coastal defense vessel number 112. 1 week later, now out of both torpedoes and 5-inch shells, Barb used most of her remaining 40mm and 20mm ammunition to hit Shibutaro with a sweeping gun attack. Hits on an oil tank caused fires that spread and destroyed a lumber mill and a sampan building yard, destroying 35 new sampans. Barb then attacked a trawler with the last of its ammunition. With the trawler refusing to sink and now totally out of ammunition, Barb rammed it, pushing it under. With her month-long rampage over, Barb set a triumphant course for Midway. Over the course of the war, Barb had made 12 patrols, been awarded 6 Navy Crosses, 23 Silver Stars, 23 Bronze Stars, a Medal of Honor, a Presidential Unit Citation, a Navy Unit Citation, sunk or damaged 34 merchant ships, sunk 5 Japanese warships, conducted rocket and gun attacks, destroyed a train, and rescued 14 airmen. But Commander Flucky's most proud part of the battle flag is the award not on it, the Purple Heart. Through all of the war, not one crew member was injured or killed on board Barb.